show you how to update and edit your menu navigation and style it according to your brand style. So you're going to enter into your website and click on the pages here. Now, if you've already built your website, you're probably already familiar with this, but we'll just go over the basics so that everyone is on the same page. We have our pages here on the left hand side, and anything you pop in this section up the top called main navigation will appear on your menu bar. Now, if you put something in a folder, it will appear as a drop down like this. So for example, if you want to add a page, you just click this plus and then add whatever sort of page that you are looking for. And you can also add a link. If you want to create a drop down, you click this one, and then you can either create, I'll do that, you can either create pages within that folder, or you can also drag and drop existing pages into that folder or in place on your menu. For example, I'll show you what that looks like. And we can see we've got my new drop down. There's nothing in that drop down at the moment, so it doesn't have a drop down on it. And then we've got our style guide, but I'm going to move those out because we don't need them for the purpose of this tutorial. So there we have it. That's how you add links into your menu navigation. Now let's move on to actually styling your navigation. So whether you've bought a template or you're starting from scratch, there are lots of options for how your menu looks on your website. This video will go into the basics that are part of Squarespace itself, and if you want to add any further customizations, we have a bunch of videos on adding hover links or adding extra features to your menu. So coming into edit, you can do this on any page. We're using the home page because that's the most prominent one, so we want to make sure that it definitely looks great on the home page. Then we're going to hover over the header section and click edit site header. And now this will kind of grey out the bottom part, the main part of the page. We're just looking at the header here. So the first thing you're going to want to do, if you haven't already, is click on this, and when you created your site, you usually give your site a name. So it might just be text in the left hand corner or wherever your logo is sitting, or your site title is sitting, and you're going to click on that. So clicking on it and clicking the pencil. Now we can name our site anything we want, and usually this is your business, but we also want you to add your SEO title in here as well. Then you can also change your logo or add a logo if you don't have a logo already in there, and you'll just do this by, this will just be an upload button, and you'll click that and find your logo. Now remember to always upload your logo as a transparent PNG so that the color of whatever you pick for your menu comes through. Now you can also change the logo height, so we can increase or decrease as we like. And then we move on to the mobile version. So I'm clicking into the mobile view, and sorry, we can't actually edit it in there. So we can change the height in the mobile, and then also we can add a specific mobile image. Now this is great if you pick a color for your mobile overlay that doesn't match the background we're using currently. So for example, that might be that if I were to pick this light color pink, then my logo isn't going to show. So I'm going to need to upload an alternative logo for viewing on mobile. So that is our site logo. Now let's talk about the overall layout. So if we come into edit design and you click on this layout option, you'll see that there are different layouts you can have for your navigation. You can have your links left aligned and your logo on the left, and any call to actions, including some extra features which we'll add in a second, will appear on the right. And then you can have your menu items centered, you can have your logo centered, or you can have it in a stacked version. like so. So I'm going to move it back to the original just to show you that we can also add in extra elements. Now we have the button turned on. You can always turn that off if you don't want a call to action up there. You can add social links. So in the connected accounts section of your site, you'll set up your social links and you can have them in your menu so that they're easily navigatable too. Don't know if that's a word. If you sell products on your site, then it's really important that you have a cart icon, and we have a video tutorial coming soon on how to actually create this as a floating icon so it doesn't sit in your menu bar if you don't want it to be, because sometimes when we've got lots of links like this, and I'm on quite a large screen, but if I was to shrink this down, we would get some stacking happening in our menu. So sometimes it can be better to keep things a bit cleaner, on your menu. So keep an eye out for that video as well. If you run a membership site or a course through Squarespace, you can put in a account link into your menu bar, which is really great. It means that you always have access. Your students always have access straight from the menu. They don't have to go digging for an email with a login or anything like that. Now, language switch, you have to have the multilingual plugin for this, or extension, and this will allow you to have a toggle on your site that toggles between different languages, which is really great if you are working across across different continents and languages and have a digital online business. So I'm going to take all of that, I'm going to leave the button on actually, take that off and return it to how we had it. So now what happens when you want to change the color? So if we come back into edit design and we come into the color tab, you can pick a few different options. Now we can go with solid. Solid means that it will appear, whatever styling you pick, it will appear that way across all of the pages. That's different to adaptive. So adaptive actually takes the color palette of the first, or the color theme of the first section, and applies it to the header. So as I move through different pages, this color will actually change depending on what theme I've used for the first section. So then our final choice, which is actually the middle one, is a gradient. So we can pick the colors based from our color palette of if we want a gradient theme. So I'm going to return to solid because that also comes with its own editing options. So we can either choose a color and just set that color in here. So we'd be setting the background color, and again I'll change that so you can see what it looks like, and the navigation color, where we can change as we like. And then we can also change the opacity. So if there's a background image or there's something happening in that first section, do we want that to show through the navigation? I tend to not do that because I think there's already a lot going on, and to have an image underneath that text, there's just a lot for the person to take in. There we go. And you can also choose to blur the background. So if you are going to use that opacity, I would turn on the blur just so you're getting a bit of texture in there, but you're not overwhelming someone with visual inputs. And you can obviously change the blur amount as well. Now that's if you want to pick a solid color. Now you can also utilize your inbuilt themes, and so what we actually had it on before was this one, and if we come into the style settings, or we can just click on the pencil here, it will take us to that theme, so we can see the theme color is on the right hand side of each section, including the menu navigation, and we can click on the item, and then you will be able to see, it hasn't quite done it. So we've got the navigation links, we can change that to whatever color we want, so I'm going to keep that with pink, and then it will use the section background for the desktop menu according to whatever we set. Now we've gone through and set up our style guides already, so I'm not going to play around with that too much. So you can also, this will take you from the primary button So just being aware that whatever you change there will change across your site for wherever the darkest 2 is being used. So it's not just changing this button, it will change anywhere the primary button is used in that theme. So I'm going to undo that so that I don't mess it up. But then there's also mobile options. So to actually show you this, I need to exit out of this. You won't need to do this part, it's just a little bit fiddly to be able to show you and edit at the same time. So bear with me. So I'm going to go into the mobile view and click on this, and you can see we've got the color overlay, which is the green in the background, and then we've got the links, and then we've also got the get in touch button. So I'm going to come back into the styles now and go into the colors. And we can see I'm using darkest 1, and now if I click on that, it should, well, it did for me earlier. Not working. Okay, we'll just scroll through. So you're looking for menu overlay, and that is quite a way down. Not menu block, so this is actually something different. That's a plugin for showing menus. There we go. Sorry, I clicked the wrong section. So I clicked on this part if you didn't see that, and then we can change the background color. So if I'm not going to do it just yet, but if I were to go back and go to the desktop version, then we would see that the menu is still green, but the mobile menu is actually maroon. And then we can also change the link colors. So we change that to pink, and we can change this button separate to the primary button here. So we can do something like this. But that being said, I'm actually not going to keep those colors, because the way I set up my style guides is that everything in that style follows what this color tile looks like. So I'm going to turn that back over. I'm going to keep the pink, and that should be fine. I'll just make the text green. So we've got our menu colors there as well. So I'm going to save that and come out of my style settings and back into the desktop for the final last things you can do to edit your site. So we can also click on the navigation, and you can move things around here, or you can go back into your pages and drag and drop things over there. Now we can also pick an icon that sits next to anything with a drop down, which just gives that little extra accessibility feature that indicates that that is actually a drop down. So someone's more likely to click on that or hover on that than like expecting a link. So you can pick whichever icon you would like. I'm going to go with this one, as it seems to fit our style. So then the final option is to edit your spacing. And so we can expand our spacing, understanding that if you're working on a big screen like I am, that increasing this spacing is going to increase the space your menu takes up, so you're more likely to get that stacking of links if you expand that too far. So we want enough so it's not super close together, so people can understand which link is which, but not so much so that they're filling out in space from each other. Then we can change the spacing between elements, and I've only got the navigation and the button on at the moment, but if we still had the cart and account and all of that in there, then that would increase that spacing. We can add a drop shadow if we want to, and that just gives a little bit of like a break between the menu and the image itself. I'm going to remove that for now. You can add a border, so again that would give you a bit of like a divider between the two. And fixed position, so this is a great one to have if you've got really long pages. You might want to play around with these different options. So fixed position, so as I scroll down the page, it just stays in the same spot. But if we go scroll back, what actually happens is as I scroll down the page, I'm gonna have to get out of this to show you. As I scroll down the page, it stays there, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and I don't have to scroll all the way back up to the top for the menu to reappear. So that feature I really like, because it doesn't mean my menu sits all the way at the top. So if you've got really long pages, then that can be helpful. So they are your two options there. And then you can also change the height. Be aware that if you are using a fixed position, I will change this to basic and show you. If you're using a fixed position, then this will overlay over the top of your screen as you scroll down. So if you're on a smaller screen, then just be aware that the height that you make this and the height that you make your logo and your spacing and everything, if you're designing on a bigger screen and then move to a smaller screen to view it, then your menu may be taking up quite a lot of real estate on that screen for someone scrolling on a smaller laptop, say. So that's personally why I like the scroll back. If you're going to use a fixed position header, scroll back is my preference, or turn the fixed position off, and that will mean that the menu only sits at the very top of the page. But this is my preferred method, is having a fixed position but scroll back. I find that a bit more accessible for people. So then back to, we can change the height as we please. We can make it super skinny, or we can have lots of spacing or padding around the top and the bottom. We can make it full width, so it's not being contained by the margins of the site. So this is great, especially if you do have extra links. That just gives you a bit more space, and it's not set by the, as I said, set by the margins or inset. So our margins are set to 1920, and so that means 1920 pixels, and that gives you space left and right of everything on your site. So you can play around with that depending on your own preferences. So that is how to update, add new links, and edit the design of your menu in Squarespace using the standard features. Make sure you check out our other videos in Style School that explore the navigation and adding hover links, adding icons, and adding extra functionality to your menu navigation.